So, historians believe that money has been in use for about 5,000 years. To kind of work this into everything, make this make sense, I want to talk about kind of some positive and negatives that we have witnessed throughout history in the last 100 years, last couple hundred years, last 1,000 years, 2,000 years, last 5,000 years. So within the last 100 years, we have seen children being given heroin for coughs. We've seen lobotomies be a thing, like almost kind of like a cure-all for just about any mental disorder, which is, I'm not trying to laugh. It's just, I'm laughing at the ignorance of the situation. It was a terrible thing. Like, again, I laugh. I don't know why. It's my self-defense mechanism, I guess. But just how was that ever even thought of something that was okay? You just stick a hanger up someone's, I mean, obviously it's not a hanger, but you go up there, you sever oh my gosh, what is it called? Medial thing. Anyway, lobotomies aren't cool. Under very rare circumstances today, like life-saving kind of things, would we ever consider using a lobotomy? Yeah, back then, it was just, every other patient that had whatever, depression, seizures, whatever the case was, we would just go right in there and snip the connections. So, I mean, what a terrifying thing that was actually a legitimate medical practice that we performed and did on who knows how many people we affected back then. Feet binding, oh my gosh. I mean, the list goes on, right? You can just name off one thing after another of just ignorance that our ancestors have just been so completely enthralled in. It's kind of horrifying. And if we go even further back, that was like last 100 years. If we go even further back, we have things like, I forget what the technical term for it was, but we believe kings had divine authority. If you were a king, you had some sort of, divine connection and authority, kind of like what the Pope supposedly has today. So that's terrifying on its own. A king having divine authority. It's just a little crazy. The Romans with their lead vases, they would put their wine in lead pitchers and let it, there was some kind of like chemical reaction that went on between some sort of acid that was in the wine and the lead, and it would create a very sweet substance. So apparently I wouldn't even taste it out of curiosity, but they were loving it. They had no idea that lead was a neurotoxin and had all sorts of other collective health benefits. It could just be, not benefits, health issues that, came with the ingestion of lead. But, and so that was within the last 2,000 years. So if you think about the ratio of logical, well thought out practices, that humanity has had on the one hand, and on the other hand, you think about the just terrifying and horrifying practices that we just have been doing forever and ever. The ratio between the two is it's getting better. It's slowly coming this way, but it used to be so terribly just weighed on this end. And a lot of it is because we simply didn't understand the world around us. We hadn't had science around for so long and mathematics around for so long that the things that we have learned have, crept into our daily lives and our procedures and how we handle reality and how we navigate everything about life. So it's just, the ratio's getting better. But what I'm trying to say is, back then, if you were to just, pick something out of the pot, just any old belief in that mix 5,000 years ago, just reach in and pluck something out, the chances of you plucking something out that was healthy and logical and made sense is like astronomically low. There were good things that came out of that time. A lot of philosophies and mathematicians and just, scientists of that day. There are some pretty amazing feats that, have led us to where we are today. But my point still stands that the statistical possibility of plucking something out of that hat that had like some sort of benefit is pretty low. Okay, so again, I'm not trying to confuse correlation with causation. I'm not trying to say, well, just because, they had so many terrible beliefs and horrible practices, that we should, that correlation should somehow be a cause for the fact that the invention of money is also a bad idea. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that the probability that money just happening to be a really good idea is extremely low. I mean, it was invented by ancient, humans 5,000 years ago. It was developed by who knows what the original motives were for coming up with a system of trade. But the fact of the matter is that it was developed by primitive minds. It was developed by people that did not understand the scientific world, or did not understand the world through the eyes of scientific eyes, through those lenses. So that, I think, should at least give us pause. It should at least have us kind of stand back and maybe kind of reassess this whole money thing. Now, there is a supposed experiment that was performed, and I had believed that this was actually a true experiment, because it was told to me by a friend of mine that I really respect, who I know knows his shit, but I just never questioned it. So when I went to go look up the actual research, I couldn't find it. And it turns out it was kind of loosely based on not even really a thought experiment. But at any rate, so the experiment that never happened goes like this. And I'm sure many of you have already heard this, where they took 5 monkeys. It's often referred to as the 5-monkey experiment, right? And they have a heel or a ladder, and they have some bananas at the top, and every time a monkey would try to get up to the bananas, they would spray them all down. And then one at a time, they would replace one monkey, and the first monkey would come in, and he would try to go up the ladder and get to the bananas, and all the other monkeys would pull him back down and beat him senseless until, he got the idea that you just don't go up the ladder, and then they would replace another one, and the first monkey they replaced would join in the, pulling the guy down off the ladder and messing him up for a second. So, really, I don't know why I brought that up. But I think it is an interesting thought experiment, even though it has never been actually. Why doesn't somebody just do it? Why doesn't somebody just, is it like can you not spray monkeys down, or I don't know. I think somebody should actually try it. I think it would be really interesting if somebody really put the 5 monkeys to the test to see how it would really turn out. But my point is that there are very few things that we don't stop and think about. And money is one of them. I mean, I think it's just one of these things that is so embedded and so a part of our culture that you just don't even think of it as, I mean, you know, kind of probably has something to do with its roots as well. If you think about, you know, if you start to question money, you know, you kind of go back to, oh, well, it's just kind of the evolution of trade. And, you know, trade obviously has always been around, that kind of thing. Maybe, but maybe not. And so that's kind of what we're going to be talking about. I think there's a few reasons why we haven't really stopped to question money as a mode of distribution and exchange and you know, material propagation. But yeah, it's just one of those really bizarre kind of concepts that we've just never really collectively stopped to question. Maybe the occasional, you know, 2 or 3 people or a group of people, or, you know, a group of 20 people go and start a compound or whatever, right? Maybe they fairly heavily questioned it, but I don't think it's something you hear about that often. You know, you definitely, it's not questioned like the war on drugs is questioned, that's for sure. The war on drugs is thankfully starting to get questioned. But yeah, I think it's so just embedded in everything that we're doing that it's really, I don't know, we just don't stop to really question it. So hopefully I can get you to stop to question it, because if you haven't yet, and if you've watched all of the episodes so far, hopefully this little mini-series will really give you pause, because I'm about to just blow the doors wide open. So let's get moving. Okay.